It is one of the most essential dreams that parents have for their children, that the next generation will do better than the one before. But that American dream of upward mobility hasn't always applied equally to America's children. And a new study from Harvard is checking in to see exactly how we're doing across race and class, and what are the factors that might best predict success. Let's get into the data. The researchers discovered that earnings increased for white children in affluent families, but fell for those in poorer families. And at the same time, earnings rose for black children at all family income levels. The researchers discovered this by analyzing the earnings data of 57 million Americans born between 1978 and 1992 and found that the class gap for white children widened by 28%, but the race gap between black and white children in low-income families actually closed by 27%. Benjamin Goldman is one of the authors of that study. He's also an assistant professor of economics and public policy at Cornell University and joins us now from Ithaca, New York. So it's good to have you with us. Let's start off with the good news that there seems to be a closure in that racial wealth gap, particularly for children of poor communities, though children of white poor communities are not doing so well. What are you learning about that?
That's exactly right, Lana. What we do in the study is we look at a sample of Gen X children born in the late 70s and a second sample of late millennial children born in the early 90s. And what we find when we look across those two samples is that kids born, white children born to lower income parents, their earnings in adulthood have actually shrunk between 1978 and 1992, children born in 1978 and 1992. Whereas when we look at black families born to lower income parents or black children born to lower income parents, their earnings have actually improved by about 5 or 10%. And so it's that combination of forces that has led to the shrinking race gap, which, as you put it, is a bit of good news and a bit of bad news. Yeah. It's great that black children are doing better across cohorts, but outcomes for white children born to lower income parents have indeed worsened.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting, Benjamin, among your report was the effect of a child's parents' employment status, and more than that, even community exposure. Talk to us about those findings.
Yeah, so I think these changes we've seen at the national level really beg the question, why have outcomes changed differently for white and black children born to low-income parents? What we see in the data is that the reason these groups have been on different trajectories really ties back to childhood environment and the communities in which kids grow up in. The way we measure that in the data is by looking at the employment rates of the prior generation. And what we see is that kids growing up in areas where employment rates for their parents' generation have declined really end up faring worse in adulthood.
All right. And well, of course, we really want all children to do well. And you found something interesting about changes at the community level and how it's actually able to create rapid economic improvement. Give us an example of some of those changes.
Yeah, so I think there's one version of this story where everything's really about, as an adult, being in a hot labor market and having access to good jobs. What we find is driving these changes for different groups is really about childhood environment. And what I mean by that is it's not just when you're 18 or 20 years old, you need to be in an area with a strong economy. Rather, we see when kids are young, moving to an area when you're a young child that's been improving based on the employment rates of the prior generation really seems to matter for children later in life. So what's key here is growing up in a thriving community. And that is, in the data, what we do is measure that based on the employment rates effectively of your social network, the parents of the prior generation of your same race and class background in your neighborhood.
All right. Benjamin Goldman, thank you.
Thank you.